I'm not much of a storyteller, honestly. But what happened to me last week won't let go of my head, like someone etched it into the back of my skull and said, well, now live with that. So I figured, why not write it down? If someone finds this funny, moving, or even vaguely useful, then it was worth it. My name's Alex. I'm 35, living in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. I work as a high-rise window washer. Yep, that guy you see once a year dangling outside your office window, making it suddenly possible to notice the view from the 24th floor and go, oh wow, we actually have a skyline. That's me. It's not the easiest job, but I love it. There's something meditative about it, getting up early, strapping in, checking ropes, carabiners, locks, running through the checklist, and then stepping off the edge of the roof, hanging between city and sky. Sometimes it feels like I'm floating between two lives, one below, where people rush, honk, and gulp coffee on the go, and one above, where it's just me, glass, and the wind. I joined the company just a couple of months ago. Before that, I was in construction, then sort of drifting shift after shift, no direction, no spark. This job, though, it's different. The team is solid. No show-offs, no hotshots. Everyone knows mistakes at these heights don't just mean bruises. You either do things right, or you don't come home. There's an honesty to that. And up until recently, things have been pretty normal. No drama. Sure, I've seen some stuff. A raccoon on a ledge once, a pigeon crashing into the glass so hard I almost lost my grip, but nothing that'd make a Reddit post. That was, until last Friday. It started like any other day. I got to the site around 7 a.m., poured myself coffee from a thermos, sat in the work truck with the radio humming classic rock. The job was another downtown high-rise, 25 floors, full glass facade. Our task? Wash the entire south-facing wall. Routine stuff. I met up with my partner on the roof. We checked our gear. Weather was sunny with a slight breeze. Basically, perfect. I started my descent from the top, working floor by floor, window by window. At the 21st floor, a sweet old lady waved at me while doing yoga in front of her window, totally unaware I was there. Note, never underestimate grandmas. Some of them been better than I can at 35. I smiled, gave her a nod, and kept going. Around the 20th floor, I spotted a lone sneaker on a balcony. Just one. And honestly, that's not even weird anymore. People lose stuff on balconies all the time, towels, phones, socks. But shoes? That always makes me wonder, what's the story here? Who throws a single shoe onto a ledge? What happened here? Anyway, I was between the 19th and 18th floors when things took a sharp turn from routine to downright surreal. It was about 10:40 a.m. First, the smell. Sharp. Acrid. Like burnt oil and melting plastic had a baby and set it on fire. I instinctively pulled up my face covering, as if that would help. Then came the sound, music. Loud. Insanely loud. Not the kind of thing you expect to hear mid-morning in a luxury apartment. More like someone had decided that now was the time for a solo rave. A chaotic beat, auto-tuned vocals, shouting. I couldn't even tell if it was a party track or just noise. It was so ridiculous, it almost distracted me from the real problem. Almost. I turned toward the glass of the 18th floor, set to clean it like any other window, and then froze. Flames. Not smoke. Not steam. Actual flames, dancing their way up from the stovetop. I could see a pot, absolutely engulfed. Fire was licking the range hood, starting to blister the paint on the cabinets. I swear I watched in real time as the wall darkened and something above the stove started to melt. And the music? Still pounding away like we were in Ibiza. I froze. I could have just hit the button to reel myself back up. Could have called 911 and waited like anyone else. That's what protocol says. But the thing is, when you see flames firsthand, real fire eating someone's home, something changes. Time warps. Instinct kicks in. You stop thinking in logic and start thinking in seconds. That's when it started. That's when I made a decision that turned a regular day into one I'll never forget. The day a window washer became, well, something else. If only for a few strange minutes at 18 stories above the sidewalk. They say time slows down in emergencies, like someone hits pause on the world while your body moves forward anyway. That's how it felt. I was hanging there in my rig, floating between the 19th and 18th floors, staring into a burning kitchen through a pane of glass like it was a scene on TV. But it wasn't. It was real. The fire was growing fast. It had already swallowed whatever was in the pot on the stove, and now it was climbing, flames licking the cabinets, the wall behind the oven darkening into scorched streaks. The plastic casing around the vent hood had begun to twist and melt. And the kicker? There was no smoke alarm, no sprinkler, no screaming, just music. Loud, absurd, offensive music. The kind with auto-tuned voices yelling nonsense and bass that shook the glass. It sounded like someone had left their party playlist running while the world burned down around them. And I realized three things immediately. The apartment seemed empty, no movement, no shouting, no sign of panic. The window was not locked. It was cracked open slightly, maybe for ventilation. If I waited for the fire department, this entire side of the building might go up in flames. My hands moved before my brain could fully catch up. I pulled out my phone, dialed 911. Emergency services, what's your location? This is going to sound insane, I said. I'm a window washer. I'm outside the 18th floor of the Royal Stone Apartments downtown. There's a fire inside. I can see it. The kitchen's on fire, like, full on flames. Someone's got to get here now. Fire crew is on the way, the dispatcher said quickly. Do not enter the premises. Stay in a safe location. Got it, I lied. Because I wasn't going to wait. I clipped my phone back to my harness, double-checked my safety line, then steadied myself. I gave the cracked window a firm kick. To my shock, it opened inward immediately. No resistance. No broken glass. No alarm. Like the apartment itself had been waiting for someone to step in. And so I did. In one motion, I stepped through the window and into a wall of heat and smoke. It was like walking into a movie set for a disaster film. The contrast from the sunny sky outside to the chaos inside was jarring. The smoke was blue and thick, the fire roared on the stove, and above me the plastic vent had sagged and dripped hot resin onto the burner. I ducked. The worst part? That god-awful music. It was still going strong. A Bluetooth speaker on the kitchen windowsill blinked cheerfully, vibrating from the bass. It added a layer of absolute insanity to the moment, like a soundtrack chosen by someone with a twisted sense of humor. I did a quick sweep of the kitchen. It was part of a studio layout, stove, couch, small table. No people. No pets. Just flames. I had maybe 2 minutes before this fire reached the ceiling. I looked around. No extinguisher in sight. Of course. But there was a plaid throw blanket draped over the back of the couch, thick, wool-looking, like the kind your grandma keeps around for winter movie nights. I grabbed it, wrapped it around my forearms, and approached the flames. Flashback to 7th grade. Safety class. Smother, don't swat. No oxygen, no fire. I remembered just enough to act. I took the blanket and slammed it over the stove. It caught slightly, the fabric starting to sizzle. I pressed harder. Smoke poured out from under it as the fire hissed and curled back. I moved fast, dragging the edges up toward the cabinets, smothering the flame. After maybe a minute and a half, it was done. Just smoke. The kind that sticks in your throat, in your eyes, in your hair. I coughed, waved my arms in front of my face, and made my way to the window, pushing it wider to let the air out. But that created a new problem. The breeze outside nearly yanked the blanket off the stove, reigniting some embers. I slammed the window shut again. Still coughing, I stumbled over to the Bluetooth speaker and smacked the power button. Silence. Real silence. The kind that rings in your ears because the chaos just stopped. And then, I heard something else. Water. A shower. Running from somewhere deeper inside the apartment. And then, beneath it, a voice. Singing. Badly. My brain did a double take. Someone was home. I froze. There was no time to think. What if they were in danger? Unconscious from smoke? Just unaware? I ran to the hallway and shouted, "Is anyone here? Are you okay?" There was a fire. "Are you all right?" There was a pause, just a beat. Then a startled, echoing voice from the bathroom. "Who are you? What the hell is going on?" I exhaled, relieved but also totally unsure what to say next. "I'm, your window washer," I called back. "And I just put out a fire in your kitchen. Have you ever felt like a hero and a criminal at the same time?" There I was, standing inside a stranger's smoke-filled apartment, shoeless, because yes, I took my boots off by the window so I wouldn't tracks it everywhere, trying to explain why a strange man had just come in through her 18th floor window to put out a fire. From behind the bathroom door, water was still running. Then came her voice again, sharper this time. "Who are you? What are you doing in my apartment?" She didn't sound terrified. Just stunned. Like someone who woke up to find a moose in their kitchen. Confused more than scared. I tried to keep my voice calm. "I'm a window washer. I was outside your building, cleaning the glass. I saw the fire. It was already up the cabinets. I called 911. Then I came in through the open window and put it out. With a blanket. Sorry for the break-in. I figured it was worth it. There was a pause. The water shut off. A moment of silence. Then the door creaked open, and she stepped out, wrapped in a towel, hair bundled into another one, face flushed from the shower. In her hand, a toothbrush, like she wasn't sure if she needed to brush her teeth or defend herself with it. She stood there barefoot in the hallway, steam from the bathroom curling out around her, looking at me like I was an apparition from another reality. Wait, there was a fire. I nodded toward the kitchen. Yeah, real one. Pot on the stove. Looked like oil. The cabinets caught. I got it under control. She took a few steps, squinting into the kitchen. Saw the scorched cabinet, the charred plaid blanket draped across the stove. The window still ajar, smoke curling lazily upward like a scene frozen in time. Oh my God, she said softly, resting her hand on the doorframe. That's bad. Her tone wasn't panic. It was the kind of bad you say when you realize you left your car window open during a rainstorm. I glanced at her again, the towel, the toothbrush, the mild scent of leftover champagne on her, and realized she probably had no idea how close she'd come to burning the place down. Are you okay? I asked. I mean, you didn't inhale too much smoke or anything? She nodded slowly. I guess I was in the shower the whole time. I came home late. Real late. Had a long night. Just needed to wash off the noise, you know? She wasn't really talking to me. More like saying it out loud to convince herself. Still dazed. Then, sirens. Faint at first, growing louder. I moved toward the door. Fire department's here, I said. We should let them in. Her eyes snapped into focus, like she just remembered she was standing half-naked in a smoky apartment with a stranger who climbed in through the window. Oh God, right. I should put on pants, she mumbled, turning back toward the bedroom. A minute later, she returned in leggings and a big hoodie, hair still wrapped in a towel, but at least now she looked like someone receiving firefighters, not starring in a bizarre dream sequence. Then, knocking. Heavy, purposeful. Fire department. Open up. She unlocked the door. 3 firefighters burst in, suited head to toe in full turnout gear. Helmets, oxygen tanks, axes, the whole deal. Where's the fire? Put out already, I said, raising my hands instinctively. Kitchen fire. Small. Caught it through the window. Climbed in. Blanket. It's under control. They stopped. Blinked. Looked at the kitchen, the blackened cabinets, the smoke still hanging in the air like stage fog. Who are you? One asked. I'm the window washer, I said. Saw it while working. Window was open. Didn't break anything. Just climbed in and took care of it. Called it in already. There was a moment where I thought they were going to cuff me. Then one of them, an older guy with silver streaks in his beard, removed his helmet, squinted at me, and said, "You're out of your damn mind." Fair, I said. But effective. He snorted. Then turned to the others. Check the rest of the unit. Get a read on the air quality. They spread out. One walked through the bedroom, another checked the bathroom. The older guy stepped into the kitchen, peering at the scorched stove and melted plastic like a crime scene investigator. Behind him, Jenna, that was her name, I'd find out later, hovered awkwardly, arms folded, biting her lip. One of the other firefighters addressed her next. Ma'am, do you live here alone? She nodded. Yes. Yes. I came home a few hours ago. I took a shower. That's all I remember. I didn't know anything was wrong. The firefighter glanced toward the stove. Music was blasting, I added. Probably couldn't hear the smoke crackling. She nodded again, sheepishly. Yeah, that was my playlist. I didn't even think it was still on. They took her name, ran a quick inspection, noted the damage. Smoke levels weren't high enough to evacuate the building. They gave her a rundown of what needed fixing, advised her to call building management and maybe her insurance. They jotted down my info too, which was a first. After a few more notes and gruff instructions, the crew headed out. As they left, the older guy gave me a smirk. Hey, Spider-Man, next time try the front door? Huh? I'll keep that in mind, I said. And just like that, they were gone. The apartment felt 1,000 times quieter. Jenna turned to me. She looked at me differently now, less like I was some intruder, more like, I don't know, a guy who saved her kitchen. Thanks, she said softly. Really? I don't know what would have happened if you hadn't been out there. I shrugged, suddenly aware of how absurd this all still was. Maybe someone else would have seen it. Or maybe the alarm would have finally kicked in. I just could not do something, you know? She smiled, small, tired, Genuine. You actually climbed in through the window? Yup. It was cracked open. I gave it a little nudge with my foot, and in I went. She started to laugh. The real kind. A light, incredulous laugh that cut through the burnt air like fresh wind. You know, she said, my life's been kind of a mess lately. But I didn't think it would literally come crashing through my window on a rope with a squeegee. I couldn't help but join in. Now you know, sometimes an open window brings in more than just fresh air. Or a breeze, she grinned. Sometimes it brings a guy with a death wish and a checkered blanket. We both laughed harder this time. Somehow, in a half-burnt kitchen, next to melted plastic and a still-smoking blanket, the apartment felt warmer, lighter, like maybe the worst had passed, and the weirdest was just beginning. Standing in that smoke-smeared kitchen, with 3 firefighters looking at me like I might either be a hero or a lunatic, I realized I had no idea what category I actually fit into. One of them, the older guy with the silver beard, slowly scanned the room again. Black scorch marks crawled up the cabinets. The plaid blanket I'd used to smother the fire still lay on the stove like some sad flag of surrender. Smoke curled gently near the ceiling like it hadn't gotten the memo the show was over. You said you put it out yourself? He asked. I nodded. Yeah. Saw it from the rig. Window was cracked open. Got in, grabbed the blanket, smothered the fire. I know it's not textbook, but it worked. The other 2 were quietly walking through the rest of the apartment, checking walls and outlets, peeking under counters. Jenna stood to the side, arms crossed over her hoodie, her damp towel-wrapped hair giving her the look of someone caught between bath and battlefield. The silver-bearded guy gave me a look, half amusement, half disbelief. So what, you just climbed in? Pretty much, I said, pointing to the open window. That one. I'm a window washer. That's what I do. I saw the flames. I didn't want to wait. He tilted his head slightly, like he wanted to make a sarcastic remark, but chose instead to keep it professional. You got a name, Spider-Man? Alex Rivers. He jotted it down in a little notepad. You'll probably get a call from the building's insurance office. Just a heads up. Great, I muttered. That'll be a fun voicemail. Behind him, one of the other firefighters returned from the hallway. No further damage. Just surface scorch. Bathroom's fine. Bedroom too. The third, who had gone to check the electrical panel, nodded. Breaker didn't trip. Good sign. Smoke levels aren't dangerous, mostly localized. They all relaxed a little. Jenna did too. The firefighter who'd been checking outlets turned to her. You live here alone, miss? She nodded. Yes. I came home earlier this morning. Long night. I needed a shower. I guess I didn't hear anything with the water and the music. What about your smoke detectors? He asked. Jenna blinked. I think it's working. I haven't tested it recently. The firefighter looked up. There was a detector above the fridge. It had one of those stupidly small LED lights that blink green when all's well. It wasn't blinking. He frowned and made a note. Battery's probably dead. Jenna looked down, visibly embarrassed. I didn't mean for this to happen. No one ever does, said the silver-bearded firefighter, softer now. You're lucky he saw it. We all turned toward the blanket again, still warm and crumpled on the stovetop. After a few more notes and a very thorough reminder about checking smoke alarms and not leaving stoves unattended, the firefighters wrapped up their visit. One of them handed Jenna a form to sign, confirming they had responded, inspected, and were leaving the situation stable. She signed without a word. Before they left, the older guy looked back at me. Next time, take the stairs, he said. Window entry's kinda overkill, even for heroes. I gave him a little 2-fingered salute. I'll keep that in mind. Then the door closed behind them, and the silence that followed felt like the opposite of relief, like the afterglow of chaos, where your brain finally has space to process everything it just went through. I leaned on the windowsill. The air was still heavy with that singed plastic smell, but it was quieter now, calmer. Jenna stood near the counter, quietly watching me. Thank you, she said again, this time with more weight. I mean it. I shrugged. Just happened to be in the right place. Couldn't walk away. She walked over, stood beside me, looking out through the open window. The city buzzed beneath us. Fire trucks were already leaving, their lights fading in the daylight. People on the sidewalks had gone back to their phones and lattes. Just another Friday morning in the city. Can I ask you something? She said. Sure. Weren't you scared? Climbing in like that? Of course, I said honestly. but not as scared as I was about watching it burn and doing nothing. She nodded, then turned to face me fully. I should probably at least know your name. You already know mine. It's on every piece of junk mail in this place. Alex, I said, reaching out a hand. She took it. Jenna. We shook, standing amid the smell of smoke and scorched wood, holding a brief handshake like we'd just signed a peace treaty. You're not exactly what I pictured when I thought of emergency responders, she said. I get that a lot, I smiled. Though technically, my uniform does come with a helmet. She laughed, not nervously, but freely now. And in that moment, something shifted. The panic was gone. The adrenaline faded. All that was left was a weird, burnt apartment and two people, both a little shaken, both maybe a little grateful. You know, she said after a pause, this whole thing feels like a dream I might have had after 3 glasses of Prosecco. I get that, I said. Except my version of the dream usually ends with me getting sued. She snorted, then looked toward the stove again. I should probably clean that, she said. Later, though. For now, I need fresh air. And maybe a nap. Or coffee. Or therapy. I smiled, heading toward the window. Well, if it helps, you've officially made my list of strangest mornings ever. That makes 2 of us. I swung one leg back onto the platform. Hey, she called out as I moved to exit. Maybe sometime I could buy you a coffee. As a thank you. I looked back. Only if it's far from any kitchen appliances. She grinned. Deal. And just like that, I climbed out the same way I'd entered. Back into the wind. Back into the sun. Back into the city, where people go about their lives not knowing how close their mornings came to turning to ash. But that's kind of how life works, right? Sometimes, you just happen to be at the right window at the right time. After the firefighters left and the door clicked shut, I was still standing by the window, trying to process what had just happened. The apartment smelled like a burned-out barbecue pit. Smoke lingered like a ghost. But strangest of all, the music was still in my head. Even though I'd turned off that ridiculous Bluetooth speaker, my brain kept playing the pounding beat on a loop, like a personal soundtrack to disaster. It was so surreal, I actually chuckled. I'd probably associate that song with fire for the rest of my life. I was about to unclip my harness and step back onto the rig when I heard her voice behind me again. Hey. I turned. Jenna had changed into a loose t-shirt and leggings. The towel was gone from her hair, which was now damp and hanging over her shoulders. Her face was calmer, still tired, still flushed, but more present. More herself. She walked over, leaned against the opposite wall, and gave me a small smile. Seriously, thank you. I don't think I even fully realized what happened until just now. I mean, that could have been really bad. Yeah, I said. It was headed that way. We stood there for a second in the silence. The window was open now, the breeze pulling some of the smoke out. Down on the street, fire trucks were packing up. Life was moving on. But the stillness inside her apartment felt oddly frozen in place, like time hadn't quite restarted here. Then she asked, You really climbed in through the window? Yeah, that's wild. Not exactly part of the job description, I said, but the fire didn't seem interested in waiting for a more reasonable solution. She smiled again, but this time it was different, less, you're nuts, and more, you showed up. Can I ask something personal? She said. I shrugged. Sure. Weren't you afraid? I mean, it's one thing to see smoke and call 911, but climbing through a window into a burning apartment. I took a second. I guess I was, I said, but not afraid like you'd think. It's hard to explain. It felt worse to imagine just hanging there and doing nothing. If the fire had spread, or if you'd been unconscious in the back. I couldn't have lived with that. She didn't say anything. She just nodded, and I could tell she understood. She walked over to the kitchen counter and poured herself a glass of water. Her movements were slow now, like she'd finally come down from whatever cocktail of stress and confusion had been keeping her upright. She downed half the glass, then looked back at me. You want some water? Sure, I said. She grabbed another glass and filled it from the tap, handed it to me. I took a long drink. The cold helped. I hadn't even noticed how dry my mouth was until then. I'm sorry you had to deal with that, she said. You were just doing your job. I mean, yeah, I said, but if I'm being honest, it's the most exciting thing that's happened at work in a while. Usually the most drama I get is a pigeon trying to nest on my squeegee. She laughed. A real laugh, not the nervous kind. And I found myself laughing too. I guess you saved more than just my kitchen, she said after a pause. Maybe a little bit of my sense of perspective too. We both stood there for a moment, sipping water in the smoky aftermath of what could have been a catastrophe. It was the kind of silence that didn't feel awkward, just settled. So, she said finally, what's your name again? I mean, besides Window Man? Alex. Alex Rivers. She smiled. Jenna. We shook hands, again, like we hadn't just been through a shared trauma, but were meeting at a coffee shop for the first time. Then she tilted her head, looked at me curiously. Do you have somewhere else to be? I glanced at my watch. Technically, yes. But I'm not sure anyone's going to be mad if I take a longer break. I'd just fight a kitchen fire with a blanket. True, she said. I feel like that earns you a coffee. I raised an eyebrow. Are you asking me out? She blushed slightly. I'm thanking you. Let's not get ahead of ourselves. Fair, I said, smiling. Just, sometime, she added. Not now? Right now? I need to clean up, and probably figure out how to file an insurance claim. Under saved by stranger hanging from sky, I said. Exactly. Another moment of quiet. She looked around her place, the blackened cabinet, the open window, the ruined blanket. And then back at me. I think this is one of those before and after days, she said softly. You know? Like I'll always remember what came before this, and what came after. I nodded. I think I'll remember it too. She walked me back toward the window. We stood there for a moment, me half in, half out, hooked to the platform. She looked at the ropes, the carabiner, the gear. You do this every day? She asked. Just about. Seems crazy. It probably is. She hesitated a second longer, then said, I hope I see you again, Alex. You probably will, I said. You've got a lot of windows. And a really memorable playlist. She laughed again, softer this time. I promise I'll turn the music off next time. And then I climbed back out the way I came in, through the window, into the breeze, into the kind of late morning sunlight that only feels right after everything nearly went sideways. As I descended past the other floors, people in windows looked out at me like nothing had happened. Just a guy with a bucket and a squeegee. The man with the rope. Invisible again. But for a little while, just a short window of time, I'd been part of someone else's story in a way neither of us would forget. I climbed out of her apartment about 40 minutes after I'd first stepped in through the window. Honestly, those 40 minutes felt like they belonged to another lifetime. Normally, in that amount of time, I'd clean a dozen windows, fight off a pigeon or two, maybe stop for a snack. But today, I'd fought a fire, met a barefoot stranger with a toothbrush, and become a walking contradiction, equal parts first responder, intruder, and extremely confused human being. I was already halfway down the building when my phone buzzed in my chest pocket. I clipped off at the next anchor point, stepped onto a balcony 2 floors down, and pulled it out. Unknown number. I almost ignored it. Then I thought, no way that's anyone else. I answered. Alex. Yeah, I said. It's Jenna. Her voice was softer now, more grounded than it had been before. Like she'd finally had a chance to process what happened. Or maybe just breathe. I hope it's okay I called, she said. I've been thinking about everything. About you. What you did. I'm glad you're okay, I said. That's the important part. Yeah, well, she said, with a quiet laugh. That, and the fact that I'm not homeless. There was a pause. The kind of pause that isn't awkward, just full. She let out a breath. Today kind of shook me. I leaned on the railing and looked out over the city. Traffic was flowing. Horns. Sirens in the distance. Somewhere, life kept going, as it always does. I get that, I said. It shook me too. I kept thinking, she said, how easily this could have been worse. Or how stupid it all was. Not checking the stove. Not noticing the smoke. Not hearing anything. You were in the shower, I said. You weren't careless. Just human. Maybe, she replied. But you weren't. You didn't just watch. You acted. You didn't have to, but you did. I couldn't not, I said quietly. She didn't respond right away. But I could hear her breathing on the other end of the line, steady, thoughtful. You know, she finally said, it's been a while since I've met someone who did something kind without needing anything in return. That's kind of a sad statement, I said. Yeah, she agreed. I think that's why I'm calling. Not just to say thank you, but to, I don't know, say I saw it. I see you. And maybe to ask if you'd want to meet for coffee sometime. Nothing weird. Just, I feel like I should say thank you in person. Properly. I smiled. Not the proud, triumphant kind. Just the quiet kind. The kind you wear when someone sees a part of you you're not even sure you show. I'd like that, I said. We met 2 days later at a little cafe 3 blocks from the building. It was late morning, crisp outside. The place smelled like fresh cinnamon and burnt espresso in the way only independent coffee shops can manage. She was already there when I arrived, hair down, sweatshirt, jeans. She stood to greet me with a kind of bashful smile, the awkwardness replaced by something else. Clarity, maybe. We talked. About the fire, for a minute. About the fire department. About how her landlord reacted, surprisingly chill. But mostly we talked about everything else. Work, family, the city, why she hated elevators, and why I found window washing calming. She told me about her job in PR. Her crazy hours. How lately, everything had started to blur, days, deadlines, sleep. How the night before the fire, she'd come home feeling like she was unraveling, like the noise in her head never stopped. And how, when she stepped out of the shower and saw me standing there, soaked in sweat and smoke, holding a scorched blanket, something inside her snapped back into focus. I know this sounds weird, she said, but it felt like the universe slapped me awake. I think you slapped me with that music first, I joked. She laughed, then rolled her eyes. I'm never living that down, am I? Not unless you switch to jazz. More laughter. But behind it, something warm. Simple. Real. We finished our drinks, walked outside, stood on the curb in that kind of gentle pause that always comes before a goodbye. She looked at me like she wasn't quite sure how to end the moment. Then she said, "You were at my window when I didn't even know I needed someone." I looked back at her, unsure what to say. So I just said what was true. "And you let me in." She smiled again, not wide, but full. "I'm glad you came." "Me too." We stood there a little longer. No promises. No numbers exchanged. Just the kind of silence that feels whole instead of empty. And then we parted ways. I went back to work the next day. Hung off another roof. Cleaned more glass. Saw more strangers through windows, a cat stretching on a windowsill, an old man watching baseball, a teenager practicing TikTok dances. All of them unaware that a few days ago, I climbed through an open window and into someone's life. Uninvited. Unplanned. But maybe, exactly when it mattered. And now, every time I pass by her building, when I look at that 18th floor window, I think of her. Not just because I stepped into a burning apartment, but because sometimes, windows don't just open to the outside. Sometimes, they open inward.